Three, two, one, here we go. Rainman's Take podcast. Observations on the world we live in. My take on current events and other topics of interest. Also, interviews with some really cool people. So let's get the conversation going. Hey everybody, it's the Rain Man. Just want to give a quick shout out to everybody watching. Thank you very much. I know you're going to find this next interview thought-provoking. I enjoy spending time with people like my next guest and getting into more detail about the subject matter, and I know you appreciate that as well. So go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. That way we can continue bringing you great content in the future. So thanks again for being part of Rain Man's Take, and enjoy the interview. Hey everybody, it's the Rain Man. I want to introduce my guest, Doug Lindemud. Doug, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm good. I was given Doug's name by a mutual friend of ours who's been on the podcast a couple of times, Dan Sheehan, and I wanted to have Doug on because it's a fascinating story. Not only was he a combat helicopter pilot in Iraq, and we'll get into that a little bit as well, but he also runs Sunrise Ranch, which is a commercial ranch in Wyoming. He is actually a modern day cattle rancher. So I wanted to have Doug on to kind of talk about what it's like to run a ranch, a sustainable ranch, and it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So Doug, thanks for joining me.
Hey, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
All right. Hey, what I'd like to do first, why don't you just start off, kind of give us a little bit of your background, where you grew up through the Marine Corps, and then when the Sunrise Ranch started.
Okay. So I grew up in Oregon. My wife grew up on an Oregon ranch. I grew up working on a ranch. We lived in town, and I used to ride my bicycle out to the ranch and do ranch work. And that's where I got introduced to ranch work to begin with. And it turned out that it was actually in my family. My great-great-grandparents were Ohio farmers, and had actually German immigrants had come up the Ohio River. And so I kind of had it in my blood. I didn't really know it at the time. I was really just trying to earn a few bucks an hour. And that turned out to be repairing fence and moving cattle and that sort of a thing. And then I joined the Marine Corps, and I spent 20 plus years in the Marines, just over 20 years. And as you mentioned, I was a pilot. We probably flew close to each other, next to each other, somewhere around each other in all the same places. And I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps. I left the Marine Corps with a master's degree in information technology management. I already had a bachelor's in math. And a few years before we got out, Eve got sick. She got an autoimmune disease, which is fairly common now. If you go back 50 years, people would have no idea what that was. But we have all these diseases now and intolerances. And we kind of we're kooky enough to believe that was the result of our food rather than needing to pile on more pharmaceuticals, whether it was injecting our body with something or coming up with a conventional answer. And so we took the food route. We decided that, food would be our physician, and that we would heal ourselves with food. And so we, before we got out of the Marine Corps, we started on a quest to try to figure out how we could source food that was pure. It wasn't sprayed with, chemicals. It wasn't even sort of organic, beyond organic. And what we found in that journey was that vegetables and fruits are a piece of cake. That's no problem. You can find those a dime a dozen anywhere. But milk, meat, and eggs and that sort of thing were kind of the next level. And at the time, we were actually living on a cattle ranch, and I was doing a little bit of part-time ranching. And so we started off with a couple milk cows and decided to actually literally milk our own cows and harvest our own milk. And in an effort, we purified our diets. I'm not talking didn't go to McDonald's. I'm talking we only ate things that you could pick, eat, or grow. And the whole family did it in an effort to see her healed. And over a 7 or 8 year period of time, it actually happened.
Wow.
She's completely asymptomatic. She has been for many years. And that made us realize that not only could we do it, others could as well. Of course, when you begin to do regenerative ranching, and we'll talk about this a little bit it gets to the point where it's so productive that you've just got oodles and oodles and oodles of stuff. And it created a business because we ended up needing to sell the excess, and that brought in more people, and that's how Sunrise Ranch was born. And it turned out that there were a lot of people hovering in our circles that we didn't know that were suffering from all kinds of intolerances and sicknesses and illnesses that they didn't want pharmaceutical answers for. They wanted food answers for, and they had traced it back to the food supply, and it really has made a lot of difference in a lot of people's lives.
And that's what is fascinating, because you read crazy books like G. Edward Griffin wrote a book called A World Without Cancer, and it was basically convicting the big pharma companies for actually not wanting to cure cancer because it's too much money to be made. But what people can do is, if they eat the right foods, it's going to help them out. So it's just fascinating to talk about that. But before we do, let's kind of get into Shoeshine. And were you at 367? Is that how you guys flew together?
No, but I was a gunfighter, 369, and I sort of always will be by blood. But right before the war, 169 was going to deploy quicker, and they needed some pilots, and so they called over to 369, and the CEO pulled 5 names out of a hat, and I was one of the lucky winners. Wow. And I'll never forget. I walked over to their squadron, and like all their stuff was packed up, and I was like, oh crap, this is for real. And within, I don't know, a week, we were on one of those C5s landing in Kuwait International and trying to unload helicopters. And so I was actually, Dan and his squadron were right next to us.
Okay.
And of course we would share the ready room and that sort of thing. And over the months of those combat missions, of course, I saw a lot of them. I never flew with him because he wasn't in my squadron at that time. Yeah. He and I flew later as instructors in 303.
Okay. So you obviously were rubbing elbows with like Bruce Laughlin and all those guys.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we're all old dudes now. I look at Facebook pictures and I go, wow, we really have aged, but man, we were the stuff then, huh?
I mean, I'll tell you, it's so I was in 369 as well. And then I got out and I went over to Iraq in 04 and 05, right after you guys had kind of finished up all the real dirty work. And so I flew with the reserve squadron, 775.
Okay.
So,
okay. Yeah.
And that's very cool. And when I've had Dan on twice to talk about not only his books after the war, but he's also got some children's books out, some kind of fantasy genre novels out. Right. And so I've had him on twice, and it's great. And he's like, "Dude, you got to get Sweaty on."
His stuff is phenomenal. He's just. I'm really glad that there's guys. This whole concept of bravery and fortitude that we talk about in the Marine Corps. What's neat is to see. I mean, when we were in, we were all wearing the green poopy suit and flying helicopters and being cool. But what's neat is to see all of these cohorts, all these guys that we knew so well, and we were great friends with and fought with, and cried with and suffered with and all that sort of thing. And then they go out and they do great things in different areas and avenues of life that are vitally needed for, the things Dan has done with his books have been just incredible. I know they've touched tons and tons of lives. And I don't think I could have convinced him of that. I mean, if we looked into a crystal ball, there's no way. Yeah. It's just what his mission was to do. And I know I am personally, and many other pilots and guys that were in combat are very grateful for what he did and put pen to pencil.
Yeah. And it's funny. I'm the same way. And it never really occurred to me, because you always think, hey, we're tough guys, right? We're warriors. Yeah. And it never occurred to me until I read his books and talked to him about it. And it was life-changing. So I totally agree with you. And that kind of is a perfect segue. It's that fantasy when you're younger of, what is a warrior and all those things, right?
Yeah.
And
that sure changes, doesn't it?
Exactly. And it's the same with a cowboy. You grow up with this fantasy kind of image of what a cowboy is, cowboys and Indians. And here we are now. You are actually a real cowboy.
Yeah. And, if you ask my neighbors, they think we're lunatics, and that's fine with us. We don't mind being labeled as lunatic ranchers. We do things so different than the conventional ranchers. And that's okay. I love our conventional ranchers. I'm going to go help one tomorrow. We're going to go out Sunday. We're going to go out and gather his cattle on range. He's got about 8,000 acres out here. And so I'll jump on a horse and we'll load up for the day and I'll be out on horseback all day. And there's nothing wrong with that good old cowboy stuff. It's just not how we do business here. We're foot soldiers with four-wheelers and electric wire. And that can be shocking. I've had a number of ranchers in the local area come by and go, man, I've never seen anybody run cattle like you do. But it's the proof is in the pudding. Regenerative agriculture, and we'll talk about it a little bit, is far more productive and far better for the environment and for the animal and for the consumer of the animal than any conventional method. And I'm so sold on it. Like I said, I'm a lunatic. I'm a diehard believer. It's just less than about 2% of U.S. production. Okay. But our carrying capacity in 5 years will be 4 times what our predecessor was here on this ranch.
All right. So let's go right there. So where is the ranch and how big is it? And how many head of cattle do you have?
So there's 3 ranches. There's 2 in California and 1 here. The California ranches really supply California beef. The southern ranch in California is near Ventura. It's in Ventura County. It's actually in the foothills up there. And then the northern ranch is just run by one of our interns. It's a very small pig ranch. We just do pigs there, pasture pork. On the Wyoming ranch, it's kind of a unique deal. It's all the animals. We have chickens and turkeys and everything here because all of those animals work together in what's called a symbiotic relationship in the ecosystem. We never see monocrops in nature, right? I mean, you never just see only deer and no elk, or you never see water buffalo and no birds, or one type of plant. The only time you ever see that is when humans get involved. So from our onset, from our inception, we realized multi-species interaction has to be one of the foundational principles of our grazing management and grass management plan. So all the animals working together provide different nutrients back into the grass, which creates more grass. Of course, grass creates cattle and et cetera. But the ranch here in Wyoming is really unique. It's got 4 cabins here. We have a cookhouse where we actually make food for our guests that are staying directly from the ranch. You can book a stay with us. It's usually through the summer. And you can do any number of things. You can come out and watch us move cattle. We can talk about grasses. I had a banker guy come here and he repaired fence for 2 days straight. He just thought that was the coolest thing ever. We did fence repair. Okay, if that's your deal, we'll let you do fence repair. But the point is, you can come here and you can see regenerative agriculture in real life, in real form. People get to watch a movie, they get to see an interview or something, and they go, well, that's really neat. But for folks to actually come and see it in 3D, in reality, is pretty neat. That's what the Wyoming Ranch is all about. Plus, it's a regenerative, it's a regeneration in progress. So, we'll have folks that have visited in the first year and they've said, oh, I want to come back in 3 years and see what it looks like. Yeah. And so that's the exciting part, because the proof is actually in the pudding. I mean, it's one thing to sit here and say, oh yeah, we're going to be great and everything's going to be wonderful and the creek will be repaired, et cetera. And we'll stop this erosion or what have you. But it's a whole nother thing to see it in 3D. Yeah. Acreages, we're at about less than 1,000 here. It's a super tiny ranch for Wyoming. And by comparison, our neighbors are 156,000 acres.
Holy cow.
Yeah, but that's a small ranch because their neighbors are 440,000 acres. So, but what we like to do, and our ranches in California, we've got one that's 3,500 and we've got it all the way down to 56 acres. So it's not an issue of how much land you have or how many cattle you have. It's what you're doing with it. And that's one of the concepts that we really, really harp on.
And I mean, so you basically are completely organic, completely natural food that you're producing. So
those are, and now we're going to get into word soup, which is like a 90-minute interview in and of itself.
Hold on, Sweaty. Yeah. Before we do that, if anybody's interested out there in terms of visiting the ranch or buying their food products, it's www.sun-riseranch.com, and that's SON-rise ranch.com, and you can find everything you need on that website. And so if you like what we're doing here, RAINMAN'S Take, please hit the like button and subscribe. So let's hit the word salad here. So is it organic or all natural?
Yeah, so
there's a difference.
Organic is it's sort of an abused word now, unfortunately. And organic speaks only when it comes to animals, what those animals are fed. It only talks about what the animals are fed. It has nothing to do with their interaction in the ecosystem. And we'll be able to maybe look at a video or two here and I can show you how that's actually happening. But you can have an organic farmer that has confined animals living in a house, you know, with a manure lagoon in the back and all the things that conventional ranchers do, except he's got an organic certification on his feed and therefore he's organic.
Yeah.
What we focus on, for example, in beef is not organic. In fact, we don't even have an organic certification because it would cost $1 million to have that, and we're not interested in it. It actually, we believe it'd be kind of a step down. But the next level beyond organic is regenerative grass-fed beef. So regenerative means, you know, if you want to think of it, there's kind of 3 levels. There's conventional farming, which is actually taking from the ecosystem and converting to dollars, and then that's revenue. But obviously, like any bank account or anything else, if you're not regenerating or replicating at the rate that you're withdrawing, you're eventually going to deplete your ecosystem. And Wyoming's a great example of that. You can look at traditional grazing animals per acre here, and you'll see that they've steadily decreased. We're surrounded right now by literally hundreds of thousands of acres of ranch land that was at one time 10 times as productive as it is now. And that is due to just improper grazing. I mean, just frankly, it's just grazing that's not regenerative. So you have regeneration, which is kind of the highest level. It's actually cows, believe it or not, can create grass. That's a really weird concept, but it's actually true. And we can talk about that in a second, but then you have sustainability, which is really just an equal system, right? For every dollar I put in, I take $1 out, or for every nutrient I put in, I take a nutrient out. And then you have really what is destructive farming, which is in order to get the system to work, we have to put something in order to draw something out. And that something we put in is usually petrochemicals and herbicides and that sort of a thing. And so over time, you know, herbicides don't just stay in one place. You know, you can spray a plant, but that's going to go into the creek and you're going to kill everything. So that is a degeneration system. And so for a while there, maybe 10 years ago, sustainability was a big thing. And I say to myself, do you really want to sustain what we got? I mean, we're in a terrible situation. I don't think I want to stay there. And so we sought out regeneration, which is the concept of basically herbivores and grasses are either side of a teeter-totter. And too much of one will tip the other, too little of one will destroy the other. And it's a matter of keeping them in balance. And the way you do that is that when a grass is growing, if you prune it, it actually grows more. That's a weird concept and it's hard to understand, but it's true. So if you graze it and then rest it, it'll actually come back more prolific than it was previously. Because the grass's job is to go to seed and the cow's job is to eat the grass.
And so that kind of goes to the concept of crop rotation kind of thing. So
well, actually, it's called holistic planned management intensive grazing or holistic planned adaptive grazing. And basically what we do is we know what a cow consumes. We know what a group of our cows consume. For example, we have 140 cows here, and they are, we know exactly what they'll consume, and we also know what our fields produce. And so what we do is we rotate our cows onto a particular section of pasture, and then we move them using electric wire, and they're all trained. I can show you a video of trained cows. It's actually pretty cool. We call them with a bell. We literally call cows with a bell. And you got to understand how shockingly weird and lunatic that is for my neighbors. Okay, these are guys that go out on horses to go get cows, and they have to round them up and hoop and holler. And I mean, a cow sees a dude on a horse with one of these on his head, and it's booking, man. I mean, it's doing 100 miles an hour to get away, because the last time that happened, it was a nightmare. I literally can go out here and I can ring a bell, and I'll show you a video of this. I can ring a bell, and my cows will come from 2 miles away.
Really?
If necessary. They're never 2 miles away. And they'll come and stand at the electric wire, a single strand of electric wire, and they'll wait for me to roll that back, open it up. They'll walk into the new grazing area, because you see, I've trained them that when they hear the bell, they're getting good feed. And so we might take an acre at a time and graze it, and then that acre will not be touched. It will not be walked on. It will not be ridden on with a four-wheeler. It won't be walked over. It won't have a cow graze on it for 180 days, for 300 days sometimes, depending on its growth cycle. And then what the grass does is it's allowed to recover. Now, in conventional ranching, the exact opposite happens. We take cows and we put them out on 1 cow per 100 acres. Okay, so now you've got 2,000 cows on 200,000 acre on 200, 22,000 acres. And they're out there, and what they're going to do is they're going to take a bite of a piece of grass they like, and then they're going to step on another piece of grass, and then they're going to take another bite of a piece of grass they like. And then about a day later, they're going to go back to that first piece that just barely got a chance to recover. They're going to graze it again. And then they're going to graze it again and again and again until there's absolutely nothing left of it. And they will actually eliminate, think about it, they'll eliminate the very grass that they desire by overgrazing it. They're allowed to go back. They're allowed to go back. They're allowed to go back. They'll do that for months, years at a time. Eventually, over a long period of time, you can change an entire 400,000 acre ecosystem to grow only grass that cows don't like. Think about that. That's amazing. I mean, you can, crazy. And in addition to that, there's a whole bunch of other interactions that happen. When they come back to step on, to take a bite of this grass right here that's growing, they're going to step on the ground that's right next to it. And they're going to compact that and compact it and compact it and compact it. Then the grass dies, and what do you have? Well, you have dead here, and you have ungrowable soil here because it's been over compacted, and you are beginning to create a desert. When rain hits a desert, all it does is pick up speed and run horizontally. It won't soak into the ground. So now I'm going to create a desert with erosion. And the only thing that grows pre-desert, prior to that, the only thing that grows is brush. Brush is usually very tap-rooted. It's got a single taproot. It's very wide, and it's usually extremely brittle. So the second a flame hits that or a spark hits it, you now have a brushland fire with no grasses at all. And that's exactly what we're seeing in states like California, Oregon, and Washington, for example. Even parts of Idaho and Montana that have been overgrazed or overrested. Those are two terms that we use.
Right.
And they just are becoming deserts. We're actually creating our own deserts in the West.
God, that's amazing. Hey, yeah, that is fascinating about the whole the whole ecosystem. And so you said you're like less than 2% of the
so regenerative agriculture currently is, the last I read was about 1.8%, but growing rapidly. And part of the reason it's growing is it takes 3 to 5 years to regenerate to even see results. So, I mean, you're the first couple of years, you're just moving cattle every day and working your tail off and laying down. We do a lot of composting. We do a lot of mulching. We have 100-year plan to restore the creek here. 100 years. I mean, I'm not even going to see that, right? My great-great-grandchildren are going to go, gee, I'm really glad that granddad put the creek back together. So the point is that it's a slow process, but ranchers and farmers are pretty used to that slow stuff. The problem is that there's a huge barrier to entry that exists right now. And most people think it's land. It's actually not. It's all up here. It's in the brain. You see, we have interns on the ranch, and we have great success with our interns, in part because we select interns that usually our best interns are those that were pulling shots at a Starbucks, riding around on a skateboard with their wallet attached by a chain. We don't have much luck at all with other ranchers. And the reason for that is that you see, the way ranching is taught and has traditionally been taught in the United States is this method called pass it down. A lot of people have heard that term before, pass it down. If you came from the country, you heard pass it down. That is, your great-grandfather told your grandfather told your dad how to tell you how to ranch. If you come home one day and decide that you listened to a lunatic on a podcast and started reading some books and decided you wanted to rotate cattle on pasture intensively and move them every day with electric wire because you wanted to see the grass grow, you have some real problems. The first is, if you fail, you fail. The second is, if you succeed, you fail. Because if you succeeded, you've actually now said, well, actually, granddad, grandpa, great-granddad were all wrong. This new method of ranching is actually what works. And so there's a huge barrier to entry in terms of the mentality. We run across a lot of guys who say, man, I'd love to do that, but the risk is too high. And what I'm doing right now basically, pays the bills anyways. Well, that's actually even changing quite a bit in modern conventional ranching and farming.
So it sounds like it is super labor intensive, time intensive. So does that make your beef, is it obviously it's exactly what nature, what made it to be and what it's supposed to be. Is it like way more expensive than what you'd find in a regular grocery store, or how does it compare?
I don't know
to
because I don't check regular prices. we haven't bought conventional meat we haven't been to the grocery store for meat for years. So I actually wouldn't know what regular prices are.
Yeah.
I mean, our stuff, I think it's expensive, but I also think that it's worth it. One of the things we tell people is, our beef, and we have empirical data that proves that it's between 4 and 8 times more nutritionally dense than regular store-bought beef. So, when you look at the levels of CLAs, which I think you might have mentioned, or vitamin E, vitamin A, they're off the chart. And part of the reason for that is because in regenerative agriculture, when that ruminant animal, that's a cow, consumes rapidly growing green grass, it transliterates into their muscle and is what you're consuming. So that animal is so much more healthy that those nutrients are passed to the human consumer.
Right.
And so what happens a lot of times, we find, and this is actually true, is we find people buy beef from us, they'll get the biggest package you can get or whatever. And then they find that they're actually eating less because it's so much more nutritionally dense that there's a feedback mechanism that's happening. And they're going, I used to eat a 12-ounce sirloin or whatever. Now I'm satisfied on a 4-ounce. Well,
really?
How is that?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for exactly mechanically what's actually happening there. I just know that, from data that we've seen in the company is that people slowly reduce their meat consumption. I'm actually a guy that helps reduce meat consumption, strangely enough, right? That's over time. They just go, gosh, we don't quite need as much because we're eating more nutritional density. It'd be the difference between eating, I don't know, cotton candy versus a sandwich, right?
Yeah. Well, and if you think of it that way, yes, maybe it's more expensive, but ounce for ounce, it becomes about this, about the same.
Well, and that was one of that early on when I would work farmers markets, and we have guys that do that now for us, and they're great. I occasionally go to a farmer's market, but early on in my early days, I'd say, look, why don't you just eat twice as good, spend twice as much, and eat half the volume.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I love steaks. I love meat. But my cholesterol doesn't. But I've heard that grass-fed, quote unquote, grass-fed beef is supposed to be low. It's better for you than chicken, lower cholesterol and all those things. So right. your beef must even be above and beyond that, because like you were talking about, grass-fed and what you're doing is like night and day.
It really is. And unfortunately, grass-fed caught on about 10 years ago. I remember we went to a conference one time and they were talking it was like a local community meeting or something. And I raised my hand and they asked, what do you do? And I said, well, we're grass-fed cattle ranchers. We have a grass-fed cattle company. And I mean, you could have heard a pin drop, right? And then, fast forward 10 years later and you go, oh, grass-fed, that's no big deal. That's, you can find that on the store shelves at whatever heck, practically Walmart's carrying it now,
Yeah.
And we started looking into that. And of course, I looked at the grass-fed and we sort of knew from right away. One of our big jokes is, I say we haven't priced any conventional meat. I mean, we do go into the grocery store and I usually go directly for the meat aisle. I never go to look at the price. I always go to look at the fat. I want to see the color of the fat. I'm always curious. And I'll grab the local, mass-produced grass-fed and I'll always hold it up and I'll go, honey, take a look at this. And she'll go, yeah, what a joke. What she's looking at is the fat too. You see, real grass-fed beef has yellow fat. It's almost an orangish color.
It's not.
But when you walk into the grocery store, when you walk into the grocery store, you pick up, quote, grass-fed beef, and it's got white fat. And I started looking into that, and I go, well, why is that? Why do we have white fat if it's grass-fed? Well, it turns out that the USDA tried to make a ruling on grass-fed where they said, okay, for it to be grass-fed, it's got to be fed only grass. And there was a bunch of protests about it, and a lot of the large producers that control this sort of a thing said, hey, wait a second, what happens if we feed barley? Well, barley's a grass, but it's also a grain. It's got a grain head to it.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, barley's okay. And then they said, well, what happens if we feed barley in the wintertime, but we feed grass in the summertime? is that grass fed? And the USDA said, oh, okay, sure. And pretty soon they threw up their hands after so many objections. They said, all right, we're not going to try to regulate this. What ended up resulting in that was that you could say that grass-fed beef was grass-fed if it had only eaten grass one day in its life. So, I mean, that'd be like me handing you an orange, right? And saying, Brian, you eat an orange today, tomorrow you're orange fed. Well, yeah, he doesn't eat oranges exclusively all of his life. So we had to come up with another term. And this is how, you kind of get in these circles. We started saying, well, we're grass fed and grass finished. Finishing is a term that's used in the cattle industry to talk about the last few months of an animal's life. What are they consuming? And then we had to say, well, no, we're grass fed. And then we finally threw our hands up and said, look, just call me and ask, what are your cows eating?
Right.
Well, my cows eat grass all the time, no matter what, because that's what cows are supposed to eat. But you see a lot of these large companies now, they'll take cows, they'll put them in a feedlot all their lives. And then the last few days they'll give them grass and they'll say, there you go, we can put the grass-fed label on.
That's
you
amazing.
can tell as a consumer by just simply looking at the fat. If you see yellow fat, it's grass-fed. If you see white fat, it's not grass-fed. Can't tell you what it ate. I can just tell you it didn't eat grass.
Yeah.
My point being is all of that beta carotene, by the way, that is what that is. Beta carotene is what's coloring that fat. That animal is eating that at a tremendous rate, so much so that it's being sequestered in its fat system. That's what's making the fat yellow.
Interesting. It reminds me, several years ago, my wife, one of the doctors that works with my wife is from Argentina, and they had us over for dinner one night, and it was he was having Argentine beef, and it was amazing. What I found fascinating about that is, the typical guy who buys a steak at the grocery store, it's this big thick thing, and it looks perfect. This one didn't look as perfect, but it tasted 1,000 times better because
that's what our beef. People always look at ours and they go, well, it doesn't look like regular beef. I go, well, that's because it's not. Trust me, it's not. It's not anything like it. The taste is different. The flavor is different. The nutritional density is different. The texture is different. The water level is different. We dry age our beef, which actually excretes out about 20% of its water in the aging process. That's after the beef is harvested and before it's cut and put into packages. That's called dry aging. That changes the taste, flavor, and texture of any steak, any piece of the ground beef, anything. You can go to Vegas and pay $200 for a dry aged steak, and that I mean, we sell them all the time not for $200, but we dry age even the ground beef. So people actually will come over for like spaghetti or hamburgers, and they're stunned because they've never had beef that tasted like that.
Yeah. And so is your website, is that the only place you can get Sunrise Ranch beef, or are you guys in stores, or how does
so
that
there's
work?
actually 4 websites. One is localbeef.com. That sells whole, half, and quarter beef. So if you want bulk purchases at a really great price, we can do that. Sunrise Ranch is an informational site, so we don't sell anything on sun-riseranch.com. It's purely information. I write a blog on there. I talk about what is regeneration. I talk about that connection between people that honestly in their heart, they want to do the right thing. They try to go buy grass-fed at the grocery store, but in reality, that's not affecting the ecosystem at all. It's not reaching out to the environment.
Right.
When you find a real grass-fed cattle rancher that's doing regenerative ag, your dollar isn't just supporting that ranching, that guy's butchering system and his packaging and his delivery. You're actually supporting a regeneration of an ecosystem. So that's all talked about in Sunrise Ranch. And then sunriseranchstore.com is like, hey, I just want to buy 1 package of beef just to try it out, or I want a monthly subscription or whatever. So that's a different thing. And then we have regenagbnb.com, which is actually our tourism offshoot where you can come to the ranch and book a stay and learn about, stay for a few days. Or maybe you're an accountant who, grew up in the city and you don't know anything about farming, but you want to move to the country. Well, we can give you a crash course on how to fix fence and chase pigs all day.
It's kind of like that movie City Slickers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, City Slickers, right.
So
there's really 4 websites, but ultimately, so your question was, are we distributed in the stores anywhere? And the answer is no. For regenerative agriculture to make it, if you're going to make it in this industry, you've got to connect directly to the consumer.
Gotcha.
They need to be able to pick up a phone and call their rancher and say, hey, I got a question about this, or I saw that, or, or, they want to connect directly to a ranch, and they want to make sure their dollars are going not to a multinational company
Who's actually
80% of our beef in the United States is controlled by 4 huge companies.
That's amazing.
They want to make sure that's not happening. They want the money directly going to a farmer.
Now, you're obviously you're not competing with those giants, but are you feeling any pressure from them? Are they putting any pressure on you? Or me?
Well, I'll give you a great example of what the pressure is. So when they shut down and do stupid things like that, we get flooded with all kinds of people who they're not interested in regen ag or grass-fed beef. They just want beef, right? Yeah. California voted a law recently that has absolutely nothing to do with us. It takes effect on the 1st of January regarding pigs and how they're farrowed. If you know anything about that, a mama pig is like 300 pounds. She's huge. She has little tiny piglets that are literally about that big. By the way, they're born with teeth and she nurses them. So that would explain why they're so angry. But anyways, these little piglets, and she'll have like 12 of them, and they screwed around and they don't, they move really fast and that sort of thing. Well, when she's trying to nurse them, she's got to lay on her side so they can get up on her and get on a teeth, that sort of thing. And very often what happens is she rolls over on a pig and kills her, kills her little piglet. So we use a board when we're farrowing, and you just put a board on the back of the stall where the pig is. She's got to be confined. We have to put her in for that. We can't have her out on pasture. She'll just, munch the pigs into the mud or what have you. So we bring them in, and we know about the time they're going to farrow. And so those little piglets can escape and hide under that board and then get out. But in the conventional system, they actually use a metal structure that actually holds the pig kind of straight up and down and allows her to flop over. So, and that's got a food bowl in it and water and that sort of thing. And somebody obviously went in there with a hidden camera or something. And man, that's the cruelest thing ever, without any context whatsoever of, hey, we're actually trying to keep piglets alive. And so that went up for vote, and Californians all, cried about it and decided, no, we can't have that anymore. Well, guess what? That is going to shut off pork entirely for your state of California.
California is so fucked up, dude.
The flip side of that is and we're already prepared, because during COVID this happened, but we're prepared for, oh my gosh, we just sold out of everything because some dude that doesn't care anything about regen ag just can't get his bacon. Yeah. And so we're always having to really kind of delicately bounce around that. We love to see people come to our side for the right reason. Yeah. I don't know that that's necessarily the right reason. I'm not just interested in moving beef. If I was, I'd become a multinational whatever, right? Right. I mean, heck, we're Marine officers. We can do anything we want, right? The sky's the limit, right? You just set your mind to it and let's go, guys.
Exactly. Take that hill.
So, but that's not what we're about. I'm about regenerating soils. I'm about changing agriculture one heart and soul at a time. I'm about taking care of animals and seeing a stream get restored and all that sort of a thing. So,
and this is amazing. And it also pisses me off about politics right now and politicians. You have these people screaming that, stop eating meat. It's the carbon is destroying the environment. And it's so far off the truth. You're actually regenerating the environment.
Oh,
it just blows my mind that these people are out there talking like this. And it just pisses me off that people are actually listening to them. And
and that's what we love about the guest ranch. I had a guy come here and I hate to stereotype, but I mean, I kind of knew what side of the political aisle he was on. He's a super nice guy, and he comes and he goes, look, I've never been to a ranch, and he's probably in his, 50s or 60s. He said, I've never been to a ranch. I've never seen any of this stuff before. I'm like, well, I bet you've been voting your whole life. Let's take a tour, right? So he spent about a half a day with me. We went out, we looked at soils, and I said, hey, look, this is what causes erosion. Cattle. Yeah. And I said, guess what can fix erosion? He goes, what? Cattle. It's really interesting. And what I think is perhaps the greatest stroke of irony to hit the modern age is that the cow is actually the savior, and it's the one being demonized. It would be like as if they said, look, I've got to put in a nail, all right, but I can't use a hammer. I've got to use a screwdriver, or I've got to use a pair of pliers and turn it sideways and bang on it. I mean, the cow actually, if grazed properly, does regeneration and actually restores the ecosystem, but it's got to be done properly, and it takes a huge amount of discipline. It takes a ton of hard work. I mean, we're out every single day. These are not easy days. We do 12 hours a day in the wintertime and easily 14, 15 hours. It is sun up to sundown, moving cattle, constantly looking and evaluating what we're doing with the grasses, cutting brush and actually restoring back grasses.
Now, are you real quick, Sweaty? Are you do you have a scientist on staff or somebody that,
Oh.
that it's all you and the experience that you had
No.
over, how do you, where'd you get
it's trial and error and a lot of reading. I mean, there's a few really heavy hitters on our side. We have Joel Salatin, who's a leader in the industry, par none. He's written 14 books that are all designed for guys as dumb as me. We've got Gabe Brown up in the Dakotas. He runs Nourish by Nature. They're regenerating at a massive rate. There's a number of really great guys that have actually taken the time to write down what they've done.
Yeah.
And then for the most part, each grazing system is very different based on your environment. And so you come out and you just do trial and error. I'll give you a great example. We just had we're in Wyoming. We just had a big snow here. We put down about 6 inches. We realized rushed to town and we bought some grass seed. And we did what's called frost seeding, where you seed over the top of the snow and then you put mulch on top of that. And what it does is basically you have soil, and then you have seed, and then you have water in kind of a frozen form, and then you have mulch on top of that. That's a perfect formula over the winter for compressing and then creating growth. And so you can do that. You can my conventional ranchers could do that on their ranch, and they'd get 1 season out of it. Their cows would come, eat all that down, and destroy that grass. So it's a whole encompassing system. It's not just understanding your ecosystem and what it's trying to tell you. And looking back historically, we've had to go back and do research on this ranch. It was first founded in 1897. So we've had to go back and put pieces to the puzzle together to find out what this actually looked like before we destroyed it over 100 years. And then you've got to come up with a formula that works, and you do trial and error. We don't know that frost seeding is going to work until next year. And then we've got to graze the cattle on it for 3 days for a whole year. And then they've got to come off because they can't overgraze that. So every situation is very unique. What you're really left with is, it's a lot like flying. You get a couple tools in your tool bag, and then you go out and you just do it, and you learn and do it. The systems we use on this ranch are totally different than the systems we use on our California ranch.
And do you travel back and forth? Or and I'm sorry, did you say you're in Montana or Wyoming right now?
I'm in Wyoming now. I'm on the guest ranch. Yeah.
Okay. And so do you travel back and forth between the California ranch? Or
I do. I spend a lot of time hauling back and forth, going back and forth. Lots of phone calls. We've got great people that work for us. We only have a handful, but they're extremely talented and they're very, very dedicated. It takes a lot of heart and soul to do it. There's going to be a lot of times where you go, man, I put a lot of labor into that idea or that concept and it didn't work.
Yeah.
We've got enough experience now. When I have a young intern come on with us, I can kind of get them headed in the right direction and go, hey, don't do that or do that and that sort of thing. But our goal is to see that next generation kind of pick up and sort of carry on the banner and start to actually regenerate on a larger scale.
Nice. And that's a nice little segue here. And again, we're talking with Doug Lindemud, who runs Sunrise Ranch in Wyoming and also in Ventura. And they actually have an internship program. And you can check that out on sun-riseranch.com, correct?
Yeah, that's right. We actually did our interns last summer. And we had a great turnout for that. It's a really neat, we normally take an intern on over the summer, an intern or two, and it's kind of a 90-day thing, and it gives them a chance to go, hey, there's so many of our young folks who would have been great in a trade, but never had that offered to them.
Yeah.
When I went to school, you could go to college or you could go to trade, and those guys that took the trade route are doing really well right now. I mean, have you tried to hire a plumber lately? They're not cheap. So those guys are doing really well, but they were offered that opportunity. And it turns out, they were really good at putting together an engine, right? And maybe I was better at math or something. Yeah. That's not offered anymore. It's one size fits all, just like all the other policies in America right now are one size fits all. You better be in the cookie cutter or you're not. And every kid goes to college. And the sad part of that is we get guys out here, like I said, that we're pulling shots at a Starbucks.
Yeah.
And they turn out to be the best ranching, hardworking dudes you've ever seen in your life. And they pick up fast. And it turns out that they're in their late 20s and nobody ever they didn't even know that you could be a regenerative agriculture rancher, not to mention make money doing it.
Well, and are you getting kids from all over the country? And how big is the program? Is it one intern at a time?
It's just a handful. Gotcha. Joel, for example, out on the West Coast, I mean, I think he's up in his 20s 20, 25 kids per, and I say kids, he doesn't age discriminate. It just turns out that there's a bunch of young people that want to do this per summer. And they have, I mean, he'll have 500 applicants for 20 spots. I mean, he's got a lower acceptance rate than Harvard. And we're not talking, this is not reform school. I mean, I get emails all the time. Hey, my kid's gotten in trouble. When he gets out of jail, can he come farm? The answer is absolutely not. Okay. I'm not looking for, I mean, these are top players. The last kid we had over here in the summer, he's straight 4.0 and he was 16 and had already graduated and been accepted to college. He was doing this in between high school and college.
Yeah. Dude, I'm telling you.
Absolutely the sharpest dude I've ever, I mean, it's just insane. I could give him a list of things to do and detailed instructions. Go out into this field, move that pipe this way, and then make sure that these are turned on, and he'd come back and it'll all be done perfectly. Yeah. So these are top players, and that's exactly who we want in this. This is believe it or not, this new type of ranching is a very cutting edge. You got to think outside the box. You've got to be smart. You got to be savvy, and you got to be an extremely hard worker. I mean, it's not uncommon I shot a video just yesterday. It was 19 degrees out, and I was out all day in 19-degree weather. It's not, it's not always fun. I'll tell you that much. I mean, it's a lot of hard work.
It's not for everybody, but for the young kids that have been just browbeaten about climate change and saving the planet, this is actually saving the planet.
Oh, it's no kidding. It's just absolutely amazing. Like I said, I had that guy come I'm sure I could tell you what side of the political aisle he had voted on his whole life. And he came and he walked away and said, I'm just stunned. I had no idea we could actually do this. Why isn't every farm in all of the United States doing this? And I said, honestly, because they don't know. Yeah. Well, we've got huge barriers to entry on that. There's a few guys that can do it and can teach you. Yeah. And we hope that it'll really take off.
Well, what's going to take is another cyber attack on the meat source, that
would affect us too. I mean, we hope that, we still depend on technology, but in reality, we can get a lot of mileage out of I'll give you a great example. The previous owner on this ranch ran this at 100% full speed conventional ranch, as hard and as fast and as grind to the stone as you can get. He carried 52 cows, 52. We are way understocked at 137. And I expect to double the cows in the next few years, and we'll probably top out at right about 450. Wow. Now, if you're a factory owner, you own Tesla, and I say to you, hey, I've got a good system for you. We got this new little widget that'll change the management and this sort of deal, and we can run not twice as many, but 8 times as many cars through your factory, finished and 100% quality. In fact, better quality. We're going to run 8 times as many cars through, and you'll be able to sell every one of them 8 times as many, same factory. What do you think? Should we go for that? Elon, you think that's a good idea? And he goes, absolutely. So the point that we're trying to make is we think that, I could sit all day and talk until I'm blue in the face to my conventional rancher buddies. But there'll come a day when they drive by the ranch and they go, okay, what is Lunatic doing differently? Because he's carrying 8 times the cows I am on the same land that I paid the same taxes on. Yeah. But he's got 8 times as many, and the place is always green and it's always got grass. Well, he's out there every day moving cattle, setting up electric fence, doing that sort of a thing.
Awesome. Hey, dude. All right, let's give this a shot. We're at 49 minutes. I think you can access. Do I have to offer you?
You need to let me share screen.
All right. So let's see here. So I'm going to go. Multiple participants can share simultaneously.
Let me try share screen. Okay. Yep. We're good. So I'm opening this up.
Okay, perfect. There you go.
You can see.
Now I hope this is my first time doing this, and so hopefully it works. And describe what we're about to see.
Okay, so can you see the still picture that we have here?
Yep.
Okay, what we have is these cows have just come off a winter pasture. That's why they look a little thin. They look real nice right now. And you can see there's a very distinct line in the grass right here.
Yep.
That is because behind me is an electric reel. I'm pointing to the left here. I don't know if you can see
It's
my
that
cursor, but
it's that yellow rope looking.
yeah, that's electric wire. It's charged with 4,000 volts, 4 to 6,000 volts, but it's only like a few joules. So if it shocks you, it feels like someone punches you, and these cows understand it and respect it. You'll get to see that in live motion. What's in my hand right here is a bell, and I'm actually ringing a bell. Now, we used to call the cows with a cow call. We used to say, "Come, cow." Well, it turns out that when I trained my first intern, he couldn't do that. He just couldn't do it. And so we actually had to switch over to bells, because pretty much anybody can ring a bell. I don't care. If you got two stubs on the end of your hand, you can ring a bell.
So is that one of how you weed out some of your interns if they can't do the cow call?
No, not at all. But, we usually just work around and figure out something else. But so the guy can ring a bell. And what we're doing is we're going to transfer the cows from the right part of the screen to the left. And these cows had just come off a winter pasture, so they weren't really sure what the bell was. Nowadays, they're already waiting at this fence that's behind my left hip right now. They're already standing there and waiting because
they obviously see that it's all grass, it's all green grass, ready to go.
Well, no, I'm actually, if you can see, this cow all the way to the right is still grazing.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
So it's not that they're hungry, it's that they're Pavlov dog trained to, when Doug shows up and starts ringing a bell, they know what's going on.
Love it.
And what they're going to do is they're all going to come in. We can just play it. I'll ring the bell, and I ring it for quite a while. And the reason for that is I want all the cows to group up, and then I want them to come in all in a single group. They're kind of spread out right now.
Yep.
But and you see, there's even a few laying down, so they're fully fed. They're all just fat, dumb, and happy right now.
Yeah.
But then what'll happen is they'll all start to call to me.
And that's the entire. Is that the entirety of your herd right there?
Oh, that's just this grazing cell. That's the beauty of this, is you can have multiple cells that you're doing this on multiple ranches.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there'll be, I don't know, I think there's about 150 or so in this group. And what'll happen is the first one goes in and they all go in. Once it's like a opening up a plug.
Yeah.
And it'll show, we'll pan to the left here in just a minute, and we're gonna show what they're doing.
And they're just following you, ringing the bell.
Well, the bell indicates that they can come in, and then this is a cell. It's basically, think of a giant rectangle. It's like the outline of a volleyball field, right? It's sitting in midair at about 48 inches. It's charged with electricity, so they're not going to touch it. See how close they get to it, but they're pretty smart. They're not going to touch it at all.
And so those cells,
and even the calves are coming along.
So that grazing area is about the size of a volleyball court?
It depends. We vary it based on how much nutrition they need and how much so they needed a lot of nutrition. You can see they're thin, so I wanted to feed them up real good.
That is wild.
And that's what the cell looks like. It goes all the way along that fence line.
So now it's interesting because Shoeshine, Dan Sheen was talking about in his current book. The title of the book is The Judas Goat. And that is, you get sort of a one animal that sort of leads the pack around, and they trust it wherever it goes.
Yep.
And then the day when it's supposed to go to slaughter, they still follow that animal right into the vehicle.
We use a lot of those principles. That's called so we use what's called low stress cattle management. I mean, we could chase those cows in there if we wanted to, but it's much better to draw than it is to push.
And
it's always better to pull.
Is that because of I think you mentioned that in the website about the adrenaline in the muscles changes the flavor of the beef?
It does, yeah. So you want to stay as low stress as possible. At least we do. We want to keep that stress level as low as we possibly can the whole time throughout the cow's entire life cycle. And so even during slaughter, we'll bring all the cows in, and cows are herd animals, so that they feel real comfortable in a group. When they're singled out or alone, they start to get a little worried, right? Because that means the predator, and remember, I have eyes that are close together, so I'm a predator. The predator has singled me out, which means I'm probably next to be cold. Yeah. So a lot of times when I go to take animals to the butcher, I might have 3 I need to bring to the butcher. I'll load up 7 or 8 or 10. And then all of a sudden just a few will disappear. And then, and that's usually how we do that.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah, this is just I keep going back to that concept of the general, in general, right now, the media, everybody is so against beef and eating meat for this whole climate change. And
Yeah.
you're actually, you guys are actually doing the right thing and the good thing. And it's actually healthy. It's more healthy to eat this.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so much better for the environment. Here's a video. This is a little bit longer. What's that?
Bring it in. Let's do it.
Okay, hold on just a minute. Let me get that there.
So, so you can go on to one of those the consumer websites that you have, and you can buy whole beef, half beef. Is that how you sell them? And obviously,
yeah. So that's the most effective way to do it. It's the most economical way to do it. I don't know what conventional prices are, but for us they vary between $9 and $11 a pound. But you get the whole thing, so you're going to get all the steaks, you get all the roast. I mean, we'll sell a single ribeye steak for $40 or $50, but when you buy a whole cow or a half cow, you get a box of them. So I mean, right there, you probably come close to paying for the whole thing. So, but the quality is through the roof. That's the main issue.
Yeah. All right, what do we got now? What's this next video?
This is us on the hillside. So, we have, you saw that lush pasture land that I was just moving those cows through. Well, we have hills that need regenerated. And in conventional ranching, what they do is they just let the cows go out there. They spend all their time out on the hills, and they just destroy it. I mean, cows can be extremely destructive. So here's us looking at exactly what happens when we're grazing on a hillside. I don't know if you can you hear this?
It's very low. Volume's really low.
Let me just 1 second.
Yep. And so then obviously you keep talking about erosion, and obviously that's a big deal.
Yeah. And actually, let me see if you tell me if this sounds any better. You can see it's really heavily damaged.
Here we go.
Very little growth out here. And it's real dry. And then of course, this is basically bare soil, and that's the enemy of regenerative agriculture. But our goal is to bring cows up here, and they're going to do a bunch of things. But the one thing I want to talk about right now is, if you look here really closely, there's some cracks. And if I brush this, see, I get a little bit of powder on my finger. When the rain hits this, that powder will impact into these cracks, just like that. So normally you'd think, oh, well, we needed some water up here and we could get some rain and it would seep into these cracks. It's actually not true. It's going to hit, and it's going to take this fine powder and pack into these cracks, and then the water won't infiltrate here. What it's going to do, the water's just going to keep trickling all the way down here. And then this one combines with this one. You can see there's a lot of runoff right here. Comes down, we got erosion back in here. This little plant's just barely surviving. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is to bring in a cow, and we'll pretend this is a cow hoof because it kind of looks a little bit like it. And what we really have to do is have the cow step right here with 1,600 pounds of pressure. And what we've done is we've broken the capping. This is called the capping. And so we broke through it, and what we have is a really soft, permeable area. And then when we get water, it'll pool here, and then it'll eventually soak in. That's the first thing the cows are going to do. This is called herd impact. They're going to come here and they're going to step and twist, and it'll look like this. And this is great because what happens is, I mean, again, there's no growth, but at least we've got water infiltration. Other component that they're going to do that would never happen up here without managed grazing is they're going to put a manure patty, potentially over the top of that or nearby or something, which brings some nutrients up here. Because if you look around me, this place is basically void or becoming void of any nutritional capacity. It just can't hold it. The rain is hitting and washing off. It's taking all the topsoil with it. The only thing surviving are these little guys. And this is a really tough plant
This is sagebrush, western sage. And then there's some really stemmy stuff here.
So
I can't bring my cows in here and just let them live on them.
yeah. So how what's the plan to regrow grass up there?
So what we'll do is we'll actually move cattle. We string electric fence, and we were probably 600 feet above the base ranch at that point, and we could only get in with horse and four-wheeler. I mean, when we're talking, I mean, it's an angle like this, and you're putting electric fence in, you're carrying it on your shoulder, and you're bringing one of those reels that you saw,
right?
And you're just stringing electric fence. Now my cows are trained not to pass that, but then I need a water source out there, and we concentrate the herd, because you see in nature, the herd would behave like the buffalo herd would have behaved. It would have been tightly packed. It would have been constantly moving across the surface, and it would have been under predator pressure at all times. So they act a certain way. Those cows act a certain way when they're under predator pressure, i.e. an electric fence present. I don't know if you saw the one cow that was reaching under the electric fence to kind of get a piece of grass. They'll do that, but then when she backs up, she has to be careful she doesn't touch that electric.
Yeah.
And her hooves turn like I took that piece of rock and turned and broke up the capping. And so you see, all we have to do is just move the cows into the mountain, and you can't grow soybeans and corn in the mountains. You can basically graze cattle. That's what they're there for. I mean, those hillsides are really just about grazing or growing grass. And so if we can bring the cows in a concentrated area, let them graze for 24 to 48 hours, and then move them out and not allow them to touch it again, the grasses will actually grow on those hillsides. So
really,
that, if you looked at that, it was rapidly rapidly towards desertification.
Yeah.
Those are very, very dry, abused areas. So we ran cattle in that one particular area about a week after we shot that video, and they were in there for 24 hours. And they left manure patties on the hillside. They peed all over the place. They broke up all the capping. We just got a huge snow, so we bet that that's probably now soaking in, and we'll start to see growth.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. And the whole, so my take is, you've got the cows trained so well. So most of your day is spent just repositioning the wires to reposition the cows where you want them to go.
Yeah. Feed and water are two components. You've got to have some place for them to eat. Right. So, if you're in an area that you need regeneration, but there's not enough nutritional capacity, like that particular area that we were looking at, we would supplementally feed. We would take grasses that we've cut or hay or something like that to keep their nutritional level up, because at that point, the value is what their hoofs are doing.
Yeah.
It's a totally different mindset. Conventional ranchers, God bless their hearts, they grow grass in order to grow cattle to sell cows. We do the exact opposite. We have cows in order to grow grass. We actually have cows. Cows are not my number one thing. I mean, we just have cows because they promote grass growth. And then once I get more grass, well, then I can have more cows. But if I continually just deplete my system, and I'll give you a great example, that area that you just saw in that video, that had been grazed. That was kind of a winter grazing area where they would just let the cows go out for months at a time. And they would go, and when that did have grass on it, they would eat all the grass on the hillside. They would deplete that nutrient system, and then they would come back and they'd go to one water point. And the one thing cows do when they water is they poop. That's just kind of a natural thing that they do. They relax and they let go. Yeah. And so you really, if you think about it, theoretically, what you've done is you've transferred all the nutrients on the hillside to your water trough. So you're constantly taking nutrients from your ecosystem and depositing them at your water trough, constantly doing that year after year after year. And that's why when I went up there to shoot that video, I mean, how much did you see that was actually edible by a ruminant?
I didn't see anything. Yeah.
So there's like a handful of maybe just really short grasses.
Yeah.
Over the next 5 years, we'll see that whole hillside begin to turn green. We'll see it begin to hold water instead of letting it just run off into the creek. Not that there's anything wrong with water going to the creek, but unfortunately, when it moves that fast, it's taking soil and topsoil and dirt with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or with it. Pardon me.
Amazing. Again, this is Doug Lindemud, Sunrise Ranch, www.son-riseranch.com, doing amazing stuff with regenerative. What would you call it? Regenerative ranching?
Regenerative agriculture. Yeah. I mean, it's basically, And we've only talked about cows. We use chickens on our farm because chickens produce a tremendous amount of nitrogen in their manure. Unfortunately, what we've done in America is we confine chickens to a chicken house, we call it. And they're just packed in there as tight as they can get. That's not how they were intended to go. We use what's called a chicken tractor. It isn't anything like a tractor. I'll show you a couple pictures. We'll just go to our Instagram, and Instagram has been one of the best things going because
what's your Instagram?
It's we're at Sun SON _ Rise Ranch is our Instagram handle. Okay. I can show it to you.
Yeah.
This is our Instagram, and we put up stuff all the time for, just to kind of keep people informed about what we're doing.
Right.
But our chickens actually live in this thing. It's basically an old cotton transportation. They would fill these full of, it's a cotton bin basically. And we tow it around, and you can see in the back there, I don't know if it's, I'll mute this, but you can see in the back, it's got egg laying little boxes back there. So we tow it around. It has okay, hang on, I'm blowing this. Give me just 1 second. I don't know why that.
No, this is actually good because this is going to help bring up the quality of RAINMAN'S take. If I can do multimedia, then we're good to go. And while he's doing that, if you like what we're doing over here at RAINMAN'S Take, hit the like button and subscribe. This is some fascinating stuff. This is actually cattle ranching that is saving the environment. So my take on that is, do not listen to the politicians when they tell you that eating beef is going to destroy our planet. That is the exact opposite if you are eating beef from Sunrise Ranch.
Yeah, absolutely, or one like us. So
is that right?
Are you seeing what I'm seeing? It's the tractor.
No, I'm not seeing anything right now.
Okay, give me just 1 second.
Oh man, while you're doing that, dude, all I can think about is AOC. And I hate to bring politics into this. As in AOC, the former bartender from Boston, who's trying to tell us not to eat beef because it's going to destroy the planet. It just pisses me off.
It is a little bit odd, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
And it's just from buying the party line. I get it. I understand.
Yeah. All right.
All right. If you're seeing what I'm seeing, I'll just describe what we have here. This is an old cotton bin, and they basically have welded wire screen all around them. We've put up a solid wall. These are laying boxes in the back. You can see they got a little hinge here, and so the egg just rolls out the back. This door flops down, and fast forward in the video, I'll show you. We flop the door down. I don't know if you see this, and then the chickens just come out. And so we tow it to a new location every day. And the reason for that is chickens have a huge amount of nitrogen in their manure. So they are actually depositing nitrogen onto our soils at about the rate that you'd want to do it as a conventional farmer. This moves every day, and these chickens range about 50 to 100 feet away from this every day. And then at night, they walk back up this ramp and they coop up on their own. Yeah. The next morning, we go and we collect all their eggs and we move them to their next location. It has water on the side of it. It carries its own feed. It's a mobile chicken facility.
How do you secure that from predators at night coming after them?
I come out every night at night and they're already cooped up. So I just I take this little door right here, I flop it up and lock it closed.
Gotcha. Okay.
We don't lose any to predators. And I mean, we live next to Yellowstone.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you get on your ranch? Bear? Mountain lions?
You'll never see them at all. And then it'll snow and you'll go out the next morning and you go, holy mackerel, what? I've been invaded, because you can see, you won't see them, but man, I mean, paw prints the size of your cell phone and all over the place. I mean, they're as much entitled to this as we are.
Yeah.
The way we keep them away from our animals is we keep very healthy riparian areas. A riparian area is defined as 50 to 100 feet left or right of a major waterway. And we have a creek that actually goes through the ranch. So they come down there to water, they come down there to hunt. If that is healthy for them, they'll leave your stock alone. It's only after you've destroyed that and obliterated it and removed all the creatures that they want to live on, that they'll come and eat all your chickens or your calves or what have you. So we don't have an issue with predators.
That's fascinating.
The other thing they do is, if you can see, this chicken is headed right for a manure patty. And so they actually go through the manure patty and they pick out all the larvae and the bugs. And so we don't have a pest problem. So we get a free pesticide, we get free manure distribution, I get free egg production, and all my hens are super healthy. I'll show you a picture
Now, do you
You'll
sell
love
that
this.
as do you sell that as well? Do you sell chicken? And
Yeah,
eggs as-
we sell eggs. I'll show you a picture of one egg. Oh, I guess it was a while back, so it's probably not showing up here. There it is. So this is a picture of a healthy egg.
Okay.
And this is a pastured egg. There's a bunch of qualities to these. You can see it should have a very, very tall yolk. I don't know if you can see my cursor.
Yep.
But it should look like the bowl behind it. It should actually raise up real high. The white should be very tight, close to the yellow. It should create a very small circle. It shouldn't, when you crack it on a plate, it shouldn't spread out real wide. That indicates the health of the hen. The color of the yolk, that dark yellow, indicates its diet. So we know this hen has been out eating grasses and has a high amount of beta carotene. It's also the same thing that colors grass-fed fat yellow. Remember, we talked about grass-fed fat being yellow.
Dude, you actually sound in the video, you sound like you're a geologist. Here, you sound like you're almost a vet. I mean, that's all self-taught.
Well, we just, yeah, I say self-taught, but don't let that fool you. It's all been learned the hard way.
Yeah.
I was going to try to find, here's an example. These are mobile. So this is for, chickens that are for meat birds. So our laying hens stay with us for a couple of years. These guys are actually only on the ground for 6 to 8 months. And basically what we do is we put them in a floorless chicken pen.
Yep.
And they move every day. So you can see where that four-wheeler is. They'll move forward one set every day. Wow. And so what they do is they deposit their own nutrients on the ground, and they don't kill the grass. And we get our nitrogen injection from that. Here's a great video. This is a really cool time-lapse video of a cattle move, and I'll see if I can
bring that up.
Let me see if I can get that. We'll go to videos and I'll maximize. Be just 1 second. And
so how many people do you have? How many ranch hands do you have helping you out right now? Or is it just your family and a couple of hands?
It's just right now. It's just family. We have 2 staff members that are actually headed up here. They're down in California right now. They're coming up to assist because we'll hit a season where we got to get a lot done on the ranch. And so we'll bring in some extra laborers, but our busy season is obviously in the summertime because that's what we call our growing season. So it's a fairly busy time of year.
Yeah. And you're talking about growing, obviously, the grass out there.
Yeah. So we refer to it as the growing and the non-growing season. And basically, your objective during the growing season is to grow as much as you possibly can, using your cattle to instigate the growth. And the analogy I have for this is if you remember when grandma used to prune her rose bushes, she would prune them all the way back and you'd think to yourself, oh my gosh, you killed the rose bush.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it was a non-growing season. And we know that there's a symbiotic relationship that when an herbivore prunes grasses or trees of any type, nature repairs that by expressing more of it. And so we use that to our advantage. During the growing season, we use our cattle to prune as much as possible, as quickly as possible, expressing more growth. And then we set aside some of that, which will go into dormancy, and then we'll use it for winter pasture. So in the winter pasture, you're not growing anything. Your job is to conserve and use what you have in storage. It's just like putting up hay. It's just like in the old days when they would cut and bale hay and throw it in the barn. We basically do the same thing, except we don't cut it, we don't bale it, we don't put it in the barn, we just leave it on the field. And then our cows go through it, and we use electric fence to prevent them from overgrazing and make sure that they're moving. And then the growing season hits, because during dormancy, the plant can actually lose all of its upper extension, and it stores all of its energy below ground so that during the spring it can express itself again.
Gotcha.
And so we're just manipulating that system. There's nothing genius about what we do. It's a lot of hard work and just replicating what nature already has told us to do with plants and animals.
So when you get to the point where you've got 4 times the number of cattle, let's say, 5 years from now, you've got 500 head of cattle, will you still be able to work it with just you and a couple of hands? Because really all you're doing is just moving the electric fence around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw in that video, if I had 4 times the cows in that video all
They
it would have
don't.
meant was stand there an extra minute and 35 seconds
Yeah.
for them all to go through. Now,
Dude, that's
that
fascinating.
is not now when it comes to pregnancy checking, branding the calves, all the working of the cattle. We call that working the cattle. They have to come into the corrals. We hit them, a lot of times conventional ranchers will pour ivermectin over the top of them. That's a dewormer. It goes over their center line of their back.
Hold on. Before we go any further.
Yeah, I know. Hot subject.
That is a very hot subject.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating. So continue.
So anyway, so you have this, the conventional ranchers have a backpack. It's got a pump on it. And they basically, as the cows go through the chute, they'll pour that on and it deworms them. The problem is that you've chased away the parasite with a chemical intervention, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what are parasites and bacteria and all these natural things really good at? They're really good at replicating and adapting. So the next year, you got to come back with ivermectin's newest, latest, greatest, because it won't. Last year's formula isn't going to work. They've already adapted to that.
Right.
And remember, these are bugs, right? So it's not like us. It's not like we go, hey, listen, we really got to adapt the Lindamood family. So next generation, I want you to save all your money. Okay. Or next generation, I want you to invest in Apple. They go, okay, great. Well, it takes 60 years to make that happen. Yeah. These guys are replicating in the hours. Okay. So those bacteria and those bugs and those sort of thing, that tick or that lice that you're trying to get off of your cow or that inner gut worm that you want destroyed, it's already replicating to that formula that you tried to pour on it.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We bring in diatomaceous earth. We make them eat it. It goes through. Diatomaceous earth is what it does. It basically cuts the exoskeleton of any sort of living organism. It can be a microorganism or whatever. We put it on their hay, so we feed it to them. It goes through their system, and then we pat it on their back. They look like they've been powdered for a 1600s dinner. They're pure white. I mean, we just puff it all over them. It gets all into their skin and everything. It's completely natural. It's ground up seashells. You don't want to breathe it. But we put it all over our cows. All of our black cows end up looking white for a few days because they're powdered and they're completely bug free at that point. Dude, and it's a natural solution. And I'm not racing any animals. I'm just killing them. I'm just killing all those bugs. And our animals, you could see those cows in that video. If you saw a video of them today, they're nice and plump and healthy because they're not fighting off any worms or anything.
Yeah. Again, Doug Lindemud, Sunrise Ranch, regenerative agriculture, the purest of grass-fed beef, the grass-fed that is supposed to be what it's all about. You guys are doing it, and it's so get onto their website, and I'll have you give me those other websites as well, where people can actually buy the beef products. And again, if you like what we're doing here, RAINMAN'S Take, hit the like button and subscribe. So, dude, getting back to this is healthy. This is like your wife had that autoimmune issue. People nowadays have all sorts of crazy issues as a result of what they've been eating because it's all been processed. All of those things that you hear about in the news. This trend, it's got to be catching on because you guys you're doing away with all of that extraneous shit that is in our food right now. It's got to be catching on.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, you don't need the chemicals. One of my I get calls all the time for, hey, my cow is sick or my cow's unhealthy or we've got this issue with my cow and what do you suggest we do? And I go, what are you doing? To explain to me your management system. Oh, well, they live in the barn and we feed them. I go, well, okay, so do they ever see green grass? No. Okay, let them out on pasture and see how they do. They'll heal themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, 99% of the time, think about it. Nature's been existing for quite some time now and has done pretty well. The only time we have disease and problems and that sort of thing is when we begin to introduce our own, quote, solutions.
Yeah.
And, one of my favorite things to do is grab people that are, my mom's age in their 70s or whatever. And I say, hey, tell me, when you were in high school, when you were in grade school, how many kids had autoimmune, whatever? How many kids had a gluten allergy? How many kids had diabetes, etc.? These things are rapidly multiplying in our system. If you can't figure out that that's tied directly to our food system, I can't really spend a whole lot of time talking to you because it's so obvious to us that we're obviously poisoning ourselves on the wholesale level.
Yeah.
If you know what's happening in the world of herbicides and pesticides on a wholesale level, it is everywhere. I mean, they're testing babies' umbilical blood and finding glyphosate in it. That's, by the way, the primary agent in Roundup. So it's in all of our food. We are immersed in this stuff, and it's because we've been spreading it on our fields and in our ecosystems for years. If we stop doing that, if we just stop that process and go back, we can not only stop erosion and fix things like sequestering carbon because we can grow more grass with it. But we can have healthy bodies. We can stop consuming this stuff, and it stops killing your gut bacteria, and it can heal you.
And the problem is that Monsanto is one of the major lobbyists, one of the most powerful lobbies in America right now. So you are fighting against the machine that's trying to do this. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite, I think probably the best environmental picture I can show you is actually on our Instagram. I'm scrolling for it as we speak. Here it is.
All right, bring it up.
Let me share this with you really quick. It's just a photo, so I won't bore you with a video. But you can see this guy, if you look at what he's doing, on the right side of this picture, under the circle is
the root ball.
That's an annual plant. That would be corn, soybean, wheat, something like that. On the left is a perennial pasture. That's what we grow on our ranch. We make perennial pastures grow. And we know that perennial plants, about 2/3 of their root structure exists above ground for every 1/3, or pardon me, 2/3 below ground for every 1/3 above ground. So if you have a plant that's, say, a foot tall, you have 2 feet of root structure. And bear in mind, these roots, all these roots can do, in addition to communicating with each other, is one of their greatest capacities is to store atmospheric carbon. They take carbon out of the atmosphere, they bring it down back underground where it actually started. If you think about it, petrochemicals, right? We mined them out of the ground, burned them, and left them in the atmosphere. So your answer to global warming, if you're a real traditional, I want to see the environment healed guy or gal, your number one go-to should be, we need more grasslands. We need more grass.
You hear that, AOC?
Yeah, I don't think she's listening, but if she did, I'd tell her, we got to grow grass. And I don't mean the kind you smoke. We've got to grow pasture lands. And one of the things, like, we looked historically at where this ranch was. If I could show you what it looks like here, you'd be stunned in terms of the environmental degradation. And that's part of the reason we chose this particular ranch to regenerate, was just we want it to be a shining example. It'll take years, but we'll get there. The point is, I mean, we know historically there were letters written back that the settlers wrote, and they said, when we arrived in, places like where we live, it wasn't necessarily this area, but these Western plains, that you could actually tie the grass in a knot. It was so thick that you could actually take and tie the grass in a knot, but that wasn't the only thing they said. Get this, you could tie the grass in a knot while you were sitting on your horse. We're talking 5 foot tall grass.
Wow.
So tall and so thick that you could tie it in a knot.
Amazing.
You look at the carbon sequestration capacity of that. I mean, literally, go drive down the road right now in your local community and try to show me grass you can tie in a knot. Yeah. The Western grasslands were unimaginably rich and thick and prolific. Yeah. And we've basically destroyed them.
Yeah. It's amazing. That reminds me of a book that I read a while back, The Empire of the Summer Moon, about the Comanche Indians in the Plain States. And they talk about, you could get lost like a man adrift at sea if you walk into one of those prairies where it was just grass. It's just kind of weaving with the wind. It looks like you're on the surface of the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely,
that's amazing.
And I'll show you some great examples. This is from my latest blog, and I write about this in my latest blog. Here's a picture. I don't know if you can see this, of a road in Wyoming. This is kind of what the vast majority, not our area of Wyoming, looks like. But you notice where the fence is that's installed by the Department of Transportation.
Yep. And
you see inside the fence is grass. Well, why is that there? Because they use a mower to mow everywhere along the side of the road to prevent fire. Look at these pictures. Look at the grassland where it's been mowed. What does a cow do? It mows. It prunes. Now look at the area where continuous grazing is allowed. it's nothing but brush and erosion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. This answer is staring us right in the face. Now, what they're not getting when they mow with a mower is, number one, they're using, petroleum to do it. And they're not getting that herd impact that that I showed in that video where we picked up that rock and broke the crusting of the soil. But at least they're getting growth. And look at how much growth they're getting, about 1 foot to 1.5 feet. Yeah. Can you imagine if we ran cattle like that and they only mow once a year and then they leave it? Yeah. Well, that's why you have a grassland next to your road. I mean, this stuff is staring us right in the face and we're not able to see it.
Wow. So what is, besides the fact that it's incredibly labor intensive and you got to love what you're doing, why is it only still 1% or 2% of the beef that's consumed by Americans right now?
Well, a lot of it goes back to that huge barrier to entry that we talked about, which is pass it down. And you come home and decide you're gonna run the cows a certain way, and if you blow it, it's a big deal. So that's why we have such success with, like I said, people who don't have an agricultural background. I mean, I was a Marine helicopter pilot really the most of my life, and we've been wildly successful at this, partially because I don't have anybody that I have to impress. I mean, I just kind of go, well, look, let's just make it work. Yeah. Right. So why are we not doing it? I mean, there's a huge barrier to entry in that. There's also an educational barrier to entry. I mean, you've really got to kind of dig to figure this stuff out, or you've got to kind of be interested in it, right. and you've got to want to do it. And if you're just a conventional farmer that's, making it off of subsidies and agricultural subsidies and that sort of a thing, there's really no desire, no drive to do that. Yeah, I mean, we do it because we have a passion for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, it's amazing. You're kind of like the atypical, I'm not going to say hippie, but you're a former Marine, you're a cowboy, and yet you are more invested in making sure the earth is safe and reproducing.
No, we're very much iconoclastic. We get to offend everybody everywhere. I make my cowboy buddies mad because we don't jump on horses and hoop and holler.
Yeah.
At least not.
Oh, so wait a minute. So those pictures on your website, that's just for the website, right?
Well, I mean, we do, but I mean, I ride horses for fun and to go out and help my buddies gather cattle in, that sort of a thing. Yeah. We don't just necessarily use them on a daily basis. The other day, our cows got out. They actually got through the electric wire, and I saddled up one of our horses and I took her out, and she was just beautiful because I could use a horse on a hillside. I mean, you can get flat at 47 years old. I can get flat worn out going up a hillside, but my 16 3-hand horse has no problem going up the hillside. She just looks at it and goes, when are we going? Oh, cool, cows, let's chase them. And so we put the cows back in that way. Normally we can just ring the bell and bring them all in. But in this case, I thought, you know what, we're going to take the horse out, bring the horse, use the horse to get the cows. But my point is, I can make farmers and ranchers mad by telling them that they're doing things wrong, basically, or because we don't follow all the traditional ways. And then I can make all the hippies mad because I want to use cows to heal the earth, not demonize the very thing that can heal, our ecosystem. So I get to make everybody mad. It's just one of my talents.
And yet you're making it happen, and it's actually
But here's the thing, Brian. If you're really, really interested in healing the environment, if you really seriously want to see carbon sequestration go away, if you want to see erosion stop, if you want to see animal welfare go through the roof because the cows are happy, they're treated well, and they're healthy, if you want to see humans be healed, and if you want all that in the genuinity of your heart instead of following some political agenda because it makes you look great or something, then you really do. You're like that gentleman that came by who spent a day with me and said, man, I had no idea. I mean, he really was a seeker. In fact, he even sent us some nice gifts and letters and a book that he had been reading after he left the ranch. I mean, this guy really was seeking. When he saw the truth, he went, oh my goodness, this has been here all this time staring us in the face. And he was excited about that. But I don't think he was, reading the latest, party lines for what I'm supposed to say and how I'm supposed to act and what the government's supposed to tell me is, equality and equity and, niceness and political correctness and what have you. He was actually looking to heal the environment and realized, wait a second, the cow can do that?
Yeah.
When you're truly seeking an answer, it doesn't matter whether it came from the left or the right. I mean, I get great ideas from people that I don't agree with politically, but because I like their idea. I'm not interested in politics. I just go, hey, that dude, whatever side of the fence he's on, had a really great idea.
Yeah.
So let's put it to work.
Love it. Love it. Doug Lindemud, Sunrise Ranch. Give me those websites again where people can actually buy your beef.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want, I can just show you.
Definitely put it up.
One of the things we did is when we started selling whole beefs, we would get phone calls every day, and people would say, well, how much beef do I get, to fill my freezer? And so I'd answer them, and then they would say, what size freezer do I need? And I'd answer them, and then they'd say, well, what kind of cuts do I get with this? Because most people are not, didn't come from their grandfather wasn't a butcher, or their dad didn't work in a butcher shop. So they might know 1 or 2 cuts of steaks or what have you. So we put together the website with all these questions. How much does it cost? How much freezer space do I need?
The website is
local-beef.com. And this is actually a great, if you're wanting to buy a local beef from somebody, not us, you can use this website as a really great resource in terms of, how much freezer space do I need for a particular size beef?
Okay.
Or how much meat do I get? This is a really common question. We actually divided it all up into, exactly, we sell 5 different sizes of beef. Believe it or not, cows come in different sizes, just like there's Chihuahuas and Huskies in the world. So if you want a smaller beef, we can get you a smaller beef. And we'll tell you, for example, exactly how many pounds of top sirloin you're going to get, or roughly based on the size of that cow. And so we were able to kind of get that together in a website and make it was pictorial and visual, and people could actually see,
very cool.
What are the various cuts I'm going to get? Where do you get a rib steak from? And we outline it actually by color in each individual subsection of the beef.
And that's local-beef.com.
Yeah, it's local-beef.
Okay.
.com. It's local-beef.com. And
that's awesome.
And it's we've got links here to you can go back to the blog. You can learn about the ranch. This is our blog.
And dude, you're obviously you send this all over the country, right? You got customers all over the country.
Yeah. So the local beef is whole, half, and quarter beefs. All right. So that can be anywhere from 100 for a quarter all the way up to 400 pounds of meat. So that one is a bit of a challenge. Right now, we deliver those in LA, San Diego, and Orange County, the whole Southern California area, because we have a warehouse down there.
Yeah.
We're opening up a line in Denver and in Salt Lake City for people that want to do local beef in that area. Now, Sunrise Ranch, which is our other website, I mean, that's a pound of ground beef or a box or a monthly subscription for, a 14-pound monthly subscription box where you support the ranch and you get a box of meat every month. That's not a whole cow, but that can be shipped anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah.
The local beef is actually the logistics of getting 400 pounds of frozen meat to somebody anywhere in the country is our current challenge. We're actually, believe it or not, this afternoon we have a meeting on it because we're finding a way to get those shipped all over the U.S. So we're excited about that. But the local beef is mostly we sell, whole halves and quarters. We sold a quarter cow this morning to somebody who was living in a high rise in LA, and they don't have a freezer. They don't, we store beef for people. A lot of times people buy a whole beef and we'll store the whole beef in our cold storage down in San Diego. And then they can get online, they can see their inventory and they could go, okay, I need another box from my cow. And we'll ship them boxes of meat from their actual cow. And we just keep it in cold storage. Because,
that's awesome.
When you're living on the 24th floor of some high rise and you want to eat right, you don't have room for a walk-in or a chest freezer in your garage.
Yeah. Hey, how often are you down in San Diego or down in Southern California?
Probably kind of working out to about every month, every 3 weeks or so.
Dude, we got to get together and have a drink sometime because
it'd be really fun.
Yeah, this is awesome. And listen, we're basically right up on the time. I know you obviously are a supremely busy guy, but Doug, this was fascinating.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
This was awesome, dude. And I really appreciate it. Would love to have you on again in the future. but definitely look me up when you're down here sometime.
Absolutely.
And, maybe you, me, and Shu can go grab a beer or something.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go to his house for steaks. I mean.
So yeah. So that's right. He said he's one of your customers.
Yeah, he's already bought a couple beef from us, and what he does, he goes out and he wrangles all these other people, and he's like, "Listen, you got to split a cow with me." And every time he puts in an order, it always says Dan Sheehan. It'll say Dan, and then a couple other names I don't recognize.
I'm actually gonna take him up on that, because I definitely, we don't have the freezer capacity, but I definitely want to do this. So,
Awesome.
Doug, this was awesome, man. I really appreciate your time.
Good. Well, it's been great, and if you have further questions, just give me a call or shoot me an email. You might get some people who jump on your blog, listen, or jump on the podcast, listen, and then shoot you a question. Yeah. Let me take a stab at it. I love to be stumped. I love to play Stump the Chump. Once or about every month or so, we do something called Ask the Rancher, which is really fun. Yeah. And it really is Stump the Chump. It's this one right here. And what we do is I just get on a Zoom. I publish the Zoom to everybody, hoping that somebody is not one day going to play some pornographic video or something. And then we just get on it, and all of our customers will log on. We do it during lunchtime, so everybody can do it over their lunch hour. And I just start talking about a subject, and then I go, okay, we're open for questions. And they'll ask me, the craziest stuff, and I love it, because it, keeps your skills sharp and gives you a chance to explain what you're doing. And
dude,
sometimes
awesome.
We get a vegan on there, or somebody who's not a believer in the system, and I just talk to them. Honestly, those folks, believe it or not, we agree with them, because a lot of that is motivated by environmental. Some of it is just the talking points of the latest party.
Have you ever convinced a vegan that, hey, listen?
Oh yeah, so we have a thing at the ranch where we keep a notches on a piece of wood for every vegan we convert over, and it's because, like I said, again, a lot of them are actually seeking something. They're going, there's just something not right. My health isn't right, or I don't feel right about how animals are treated. Frankly, I don't feel right about how animals are treated in the conventional system. Yeah, they're not treated that way at my ranch. And so our answer for those people that are, again, not following a cue card that tells them what to believe, right? Not, okay, I saw this on the TV channel, so I'm supposed to believe all this stuff, right? Those are my talking points. No. I'm not interested in those folks. But the people who are like, no, something really bothers me. I wish I could get some answers. We'll have a sit-down, regular person-to-person discussion, and 9 out of 10 times they'll go, yeah, maybe I should try that. And then, again, the proof is in the pudding. I see the ranch, or I noticed my gut problem went away, or we stopped doing this, or I can sleep better at night because I know we're that animal lived a good life instead of, in a prison until it was executed. Yep. So those folks I actually enjoy. We invite vegans to, sit down with us and have a reasonable discussion.
I love it, dude. I love it. Doug Lindemud, this is great, man. Definitely want to have you back on.
All right.
All right.
Well, let's stay in touch, and if you need me again, give me a call.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Hey, listen, before we cut this off, if you're in the military, the police departments, fire departments, or first responders, if that's you out there, thank you very much for your service. Stay safe. Doug Lindemud, Regenerative Agriculture. Loved it, brother.
All right. Take care.
All right, man. This is the Rain Man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Rain Man's Take, observations on the world we live in. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow Rain Man's Take on Instagram at Rain Man's Take. Also, check out our website at www.rainmanstakepodcast.com and send your comments to rainmanstake@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, which will be coming out every Thursday at 5 p.m. West Coast time.